Hello, YouTube. Have you heard of CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, the dictatorship party that is ruling 1.4 billion people in China? Have you heard of any bad things about CCP? If you haven't heard of anything, you gotta watch my video. If you have already learned a little bit about the evil nature of CCP, and you've been wondering if the Beijing government is worthy of your concern, please watch my video and you will get a new perspective of CCP as well as the world under the influence of CCP. My name is Alibro. That's my code name to protect my own identity from CCP's prosecution. I am a Chinese from mainland China, but I am now living outside of China. I'm just an average Chinese, working from 9 to 5, earning a wage. But ever since I came across Miles Guo, my worldview have significantly changed, and I'd like to share with you what I have learned. Who is Miles Guo? If you haven't known already, Miles Guo is a Chinese billionaire, and he's the leader of the anti-CCP movement called the whistleblower movement. If you are trying to Google it, I suggest you don't, because most information about Miles Guo and the whistleblower movement have been manipulated on search engine and many social media platforms by CCP. My video series will be featuring Miles Guo and the whistleblower movements, aiming to convey some knowledge and information about the world under the threat of CCP, and hopefully to inform the people of the West about the urgency of such threat. I have to note that I myself do not represent Miles Guo in any way, and I do not work for him. I'm just making this video to share the information I learned from him and explain it for those listeners who do not understand Chinese language, and for those who need a little help in comprehend the current situation in China. Miles Guo is often described as a real estate tycoon from China. He escaped China a few years ago from the persecution of CCP. Since 2017, he launched the whistleblower movement from New York City, where he lived since then. As a whistleblower, he revealed the horrific corruptions by the top CCP leaders. The Western media often cast him as a controversial figure and always give what he says with a grain of salt. Myself, and as well as many other Chinese, do not think the coverage on Western media outlet is accurate. Miles Guo is not a business tycoon that you can easily pigeonhole. He is very different from other Chinese billionaires. Miles Guo came from a very humble peasant family. From the get-go, before he became the billionaire, he had a vision to take down CCP. And the point of being rich is to have the resources to fight against CCP. Miles Guo have said it many times that he's been preparing for this whistleblower movement for more than 30 years. He had been very successful in business in China, and he's unlike many other Chinese billionaires who kowtow to the CCP government. He seeks the opportunity as a top business person to infiltrate into the inner circle of the top CCP leaders in order to find out the way to beat the CCP. Over the past 3 years, the whistleblower movement have become bigger and stronger. Miles Guo have passed way beyond the point of whistleblowing. He have not only revealed the corruptions of the CCP leaders, but also revealed the darker secret by the CCP, which is to export their dictatorship ideology to all over the world, to corrupt many world leaders, to force them to become complicit, and including taking down the United States. So for people like me, Miles Guo is like a messiah who awakened the people who have been brainwashed by CCP inside of China and outside of China. I would recommend you listeners to pay attention to Miles Guo because he is the person who gives you a lot of insider story and informations that you otherwise have no access to. The minds of the world leaders, the political elites, the economical tycoon who has the power to influence our lives. The ultimate goal for Miles Guo and the whistleblower movements is to take down CCP. However, I think it's relevant to all listeners of the world because CCP's impact is worldwide into every corner of the world. The fact that you have to work more and get less pay can be indirectly attributed to CCP's money laundering and causing global inflation. COVID-19 is another example. It is a product manufactured by a P4 lab in Wuhan, directly under the control of PLA, the People's Liberation Army. And the virus have claimed so many lives all over the world. That's why CCP is everybody's concern right now, because CCP is a global threat to national security as well as the well-being and benefits of everybody in the world. All right, that's the introduction. Let's get down to what Miles Guo was saying on August the 13th. The first thing he mentioned was a little small-scale political riot in China. Miles did not mention much details about the riot, but he did say that the riot was not successful. However, that incident have scared the CCP leaders. Zhang Nanhai is an equivalent to White House in the United States. Zhang Nanhai is a place where these CCP top leaders are living and working. Miles Guo says Zhang Nanhai has become the most unsafe place to live in China. I have to explain to you if you are not familiar with the Chinese politics. Miles Guo has mentioned many times in his previous live broadcasts about his strategies to take down CCP, and one of them, which is quite significant, if not the most important one, is the rise up from within the CCP. CCP is not homogenic. The Beijing regime seems to be very powerful dictatorship. However, they have a lot of internal problems, and this is their weakness. There are as many as 90 million CCP members, and there are only a few big families who are ruling China, and the majority of the average CCP members have become victimized by those CCP leaders in power. Just you know that the Chinese internal politics is very different from a democracy like United States, where different parties take turns to hold office and any conflicts will resolve through the voting system. In a dictatorship like China and the former Soviet Union, different political factions see each other as deadly enemies. It's either you die or I live. they see their opponent as much worse enemy than the foreign powers of the United States. That's why Miles Guo have conceived a strategy which is called using CCP to take down CCP. The small riot on August 13 seems to be an outcome under this strategy. That's why I, as one of the followers of the whistleblower movement, became so excited to hear about this news. Miles Guo says the lowest cause of a regime change is through CCP's internal uprising and disband. Let's hope for the best for us and the worst for the CCP. Okay, let's move on to another thing. Miles Guo talked about the meeting among some European countries who have got the consensus to join the United States in an effort to outlaw the Chinese Communist Party. They are going to announce that the CCP is no longer the legitimate government of the 1.4 billion Chinese people in China. Miles did not disclose any details about the meeting. Well, this was obviously a closed-door meeting that was not meant to be known by the public through any news outlet. As the insider of all this information or an intelligence, Miles Guo shared it with his listeners. According to Miles, these European countries got together to talk about the issue about China, and they were seeking to reform the United Nations, the UN. They will propose to kick out CCP out of the United Nations, and hopefully there will be another entity to represent China in the United Nations. The new federal state of China, which was founded 2 months ago in New York City by Miles Guo and the whistleblower movement, won't be participating in the future government of China. As Miles Guo emphasizes a few times in his broadcast, that he is not seeking political power over China. His only purpose is to take down CCP, and that's all what he wants to do. He is not motivated by power or profit. A little more information about the meeting. The meeting attenders obviously talk about decoupling with China, and they also want to hold CCP accountable for the global pandemic. On an additional note, the meeting also emphasized that what they were doing is not targeting the Chinese people. Instead, it is the Beijing regime, the CCP, that they are up against. I think I have to explain about the differentiation between CCP and the Chinese people. The CCP is the ruling party over 1.4 billion Chinese people. Whatever the ruling CCP is doing has nothing to do with the common interests of Chinese people in China. Chinese people are as victimized as the rest of the world by CCP. A stronger China only reinforces the CCP ruling family's power over the world. The ordinary Chinese people remain as impoverished as what they used to be before China rises. CCP present themselves as the representation of 1.4 billion people. Miles Guo used the word kidnapped instead. CCP is a dictatorship. They can do whatever they like without worrying the public opinions, without worrying the critical journalism or the academic criticism. All oppositional voices have been cracked down and censored. However, CCP is very cunning. They would like to create an illusion as if CCP and Chinese people speak in one voice. They often said in a statement that what Donald Trump was doing is hurting the feeling of the Chinese people, which is a total lie. CCP is hiding behind the 1.4 billion Chinese people, the largest consuming market in the world. Since the market is very lucrative, CCP got a leveraging power over an upper hand over their Western counterparts. And CCP have been doing this all the time. That's why it's very important to differentiate the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese people. We, the Chinese people, disprove whatever CCP is doing. CCP does not represent us, the Chinese people, period. Imagine a world without CCP. Therefore, the Western companies will have full access to the biggest market of the world without having to kowtowing to a dictatorship. And you can have your business protected by rule of law, and you do not have to compromise your ethics just to make profit. Without CCP, the Chinese people will be one of the most friendliest people in the world to do business with. Without CCP, the consuming power of China will only increase because without the corruption of CCP, people will have more money at their own disposal. Alright, that's all I have to say in this episode. I thank you for listening to my videos, and I'm hoping to see you next time.